Teddington, 8 miles to the northeast of Cheltenham. Teddington isn't known for much except fruit farms and a few sheep. The village droned on wearily in Thatcher's Britain. In 1986, in fact, there was little to suggest that out of this rural community would come a few young men and a musical revolution that would captivate and change very little, really.
Get your motor running. Get on the highway. Looking for adventure. Whatever comes my way. Gonna make it happen.
When 15-year-old Julian Pugsley left Cardiff for Teddington village in Gloucestershire, he brought with him enthusiasm and a sound that would keep neighbours awake for the next 5 years. Inspired by his friend's group Cerebral Infarction, Julian quickly teamed up with talented 13-year-old drummer Hugh Lyford to form the percussion-bass combo Embryo.
I bought a bass guitar. We started rehearsing in my loft. We called ourselves Embryo, a name suggested by my biology teacher. And we thought it'd be really great to become rock stars, considering school such a chore.
Things went quiet for over a year, however, until new sixth form school chums Andrew Herod and Richard Kilby expressed such musical interest that Julian invited them to form a new band.
I'd always wanted to be in a band since I was about 13, but I never thought I'd have the opportunity until I met Andy and Julian. I was slightly worried about my minimal music ability, but when I heard what they sounded like, I wasn't a bit intimidated. I think the best bit was making up the name.
Tertium Quid was a lame affair. They had no permanent bassist, so Darren Perry from over the road stepped in, and soon stepped out again. But he was to prove useful, as he had equipment that could be borrowed. Dave Price from the next village briefly filled his shoes, and then was quickly elbowed out, but instead taken on as the band's manager as a token gesture. Julian, Richard and Andy shuffled their roles and brought Hugh Lyford back into the lineup, and tried again as Tertium Squid. But they just couldn't make it work, so they broke for a few months to learn their instruments.
Things really weren't going too well. We weren't even in tune with each other. We were extremely limited as to what we could do. My own role was becoming increasingly questionable, so I thought I'd better go and teach myself to play the guitar, and Andy and Julian went to improve themselves as well, learning a few scales and stuff for what it was worth.
When they returned to Julian's loft 6 months later, they were certainly tighter. They tuned their guitars and learned some new songs, but Julian had sold the drum kit, which proved to be a bit of a disadvantage. However, by the summer, much buying and selling and a brand new 5-piece drum kit later, Ju, Rich, Hugh and Andy were back in business. Rehearsals of new songs and covers proved to be the most promising so far, and then Andy left for university.
Well, I was quite glad actually that he'd gone, but it left us high and dry. We no longer had any direction. We didn't know where we were going. My mum had recently thrown my drum kit out of my bedroom window. I was on the dole. We thought it was the end.
Renamed the Squids, the band struggled on as a 3-piece and rehearsed for a gig, for which Hugh didn't turn up. And then there was 2, but 2 didn't really make a band, so that was that for a while. Another 6 months passed, and Rich and Julian reunited to hold auditions for a new band, which resulted in reinstating the now forgiven Hugh on drums, who brought in his friend Ian Poole, who proved pretty reasonable in the guitar department. And Black Toads 78 were born. More frequent rehearsals followed, in the hope of getting gigs, having learned many more songs and written a number of their own.
It was all or nothing time really. We'd learnt from our mistakes. We organised the best lineup we had to date. We channeled our energies because we realised the rock and roll lifestyle we sought was within our grasp.
But lack of personal commitment dogged the band as much as ever it had. A video recording of the band shot over 2 days in the summer of 1990 shows, yet again, the conspicuous absence of Hugh Lyford. At the end of the summer, a by now rare burst of enthusiasm brought them together to record a number of self-penned songs and covers over 2 intensive days.
We were pretty appalling by anybody's standards, but the potential was there, so I thought if we're not going to perform to anybody, we might as well get something down on tape, which we hadn't done for ages, really. So I went off and arranged some old songs he'd written and worked out some covers, and we actually got all together in one place for once to lay it all down.
This was to be the last time they played together. They all asked themselves, what the hell am I going to do with the rest of my life? And each went their own way. And that, as they say, was that.
We might get back together again. If the contemporary scene gets any worse, at any rate, perhaps we'd better do something about it.
It might be nice one day for us all to get back together again, but I haven't played for so long, it might not be worth it.
Yeah. Yes. No. Yes. Drum solo. You're not bothering. Why should I bother? Drum solo. I'll give you an intro. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Not fair putting on the pressure on me just because you two aren't working now. You just have an intro. No. Just they just do it. Who cares? It's not going to go very well anyway. You pick up my these want to tell people. Drum solos have got to go in this song. They've got to keep it. Let's kill it.